Let me show you on this video how to create conditional forms on WordPress. So follow me to my desktop right now. Welcome to Jotform. My name is George, and I'm going to show you how to create a conditional form on WordPress. Now, the idea is to make our forms super smart, and for that, we're going to use conditional logic. And with the idea of this is that we can hide and show fields, we can make them required, not required, we can change a thank you page, and we can do a whole lot of things with conditional logic. And on this video, I'm going to show you every single feature of conditional logic. So let's get started, okay? Now this is WordPress, and before we add it to WordPress, we need to create it here on Jotform. So in this case, I'm going to use a form that I've previously created for testing purposes, which is this custom cake order form that I'm going to use for conditional logic. Now, to activate conditional logic, we are going to head on over to settings, and in settings, we have an area that says conditions. So let's click on conditions, and there's several conditional logic that we can use right here. Now we're going to go step by step to show you what each one of these can do and how to use it, okay? So let's get started with this one, show and hide field. So as the name says, we can show and hide a field depending on the action that is made in the beginning. So that means that something needs to happen first in order to do something. So if this happens, do this, okay? And the options we have for if is the elements that we have added to this particular form. And in this case, we can choose any element that we want it to be relevant to trigger our conditional logic. So in this case, I'm going to select choose a cake, okay? So in this case, that means that in this particular area, this has to happen. If it equals to, for example, a certain selection of that particular question, or if it equals to the same thing that was typed in, or if it's empty or filled. That means if it's empty, that they didn't write anything, well, something is going to happen if that happens, okay? In this case, I'm going to select, for example, one of the elements. I'll use choose a cake and then the state. So what it's going to happen on this element, that means that if it equals to, and then we have options that are available in that particular element. Now, this is a form for demo purposes. You can see here, choose a cake. That's the element that I've selected. So if something happens in this element, it's going to do something, right? In this case, if it equals to, for example, other, well, it's going to do whatever I tell it. In this case, it's going to hide a field, it's going to show a field, it's going to hide multiple fields, or it's going to show multiple fields. So for example, in this case, I can do show. And in this case, I need to select what field is going to pop up in case this happens. So in this case, again, I have the elements to choose from, and I'll use, for example, a specific element for this, which is going to be photo or sketch of the cake, all right? This could be a hypothetical use case. So for example, here's the form. If something happens in this element, and that means right now how I set it up, if they select other, this field is going to pop up. If not, it's not going to show up. For that, we need to hide it in the settings, which I'll do in a bit, all right? Now, this is just a hypothetical use case. I'm just showing you how this could be used, and you decide how you use it on your form, okay? All right, so before I save this, let me show you something really quickly that is really advanced here in conditional logic. So for example, right now, if they choose other, this is going to show, but I can also add another if to this situation. So if they select another field, I can select another element from here, and I'll leave it on this one. And if it equals to, in this case, chocolate, it'll also show that field, all right? Now, something that can happen here is that you can use the option any or all. That means that any of these two can happen in order, in this case, to show a field. But in this case, I can also do all. That means that both of these have to be selected in order to show, all right? Okay, let's go ahead and save this, and let's run this test to show you how it works. So in this case, we're going to show a field. So let's go ahead and hide that field first. So let's go into the elements down here. Here it is. This is the one that we're going to show. We're going to go into properties. We're going to go into advanced, and we're going to hide this field. So now we have this little warning saying that this field is going to be hidden, right? So let's go ahead and preview this form. In this case, we have the form. You can fill it out however you like. For example, here's some examples. And we're not displaying that field. We're waiting to upload that image. So in this case, why? Because they haven't selected other. So let me go ahead and select other right here. And boom. We now have this section where they can upload a sketch of the cake in this case, all right? And you can hide or show any type of field that you like, depending on the use case. Another use case could be, for example, if they want to contact an area, for example, marketing, accounting, sales, etc. And if it's sales, it's going to pop up a different section. If it's going to be a claim, well, you're going to ask for the receipt number or something like that, and you'll pop up those fields with this conditional logic. All right. Now, let's go back again. Let's go into settings, conditions. Let's go ahead and edit the same condition, and I'm going to make it different. All right. So in this case, again, I'll use the same field, choose cake. And if it equals to, and I'll say chocolate, then I'll select all. This is going to happen. So I need to select these two in order for that to pop up. Again, just giving you some use cases of how you can use this. So again, we're in the preview form. Let me go ahead and select other. And it didn't pop up. Why? Because we need to select two this time. I can select, for example, carrot, yellow, and nothing is going to pop up. But if I select other and chocolate, then it does pop up, right? So giving you some use cases there, something interesting that you can create, practically unlimited use cases with show and hide fields, right? So that is show and hide field. In this case, let me go ahead and remove this and let's continue. All right, let me go ahead and re-show this field. So we start again from the beginning. So let's go into settings. Let's go into conditions. And I want to show you the update or calculated field. This is a really fantastic conditional logic option. If you want to make a formula with the selection, that means that you can have, for example, a pricing formula for this at the end and change something in another field based on what is selected. For example, and let's select one of these elements, and I'll select this one, number of servings. The state, I have the option if it's equal to, that's a specific number in this case. If it's not equal to, another number that's not the one you select here, is empty, if nothing's filled out, or if it's filled, or less than, or greater than. I'm going to use greater than to give you a use case, right? So greater than, and I can select value or another field. In this case, it's the value for this particular element. If it's greater than 10, and right now, remember, we're asking for the number of servings of the cake. So if it's greater than 10, something is going to happen, right? So I have actions here. I can copy field value, I can copy multiple field values, or I can do a calculated field. So for example, if I want to copy field value, I can select it from and to and add that field value over there. So just a simple way to transfer that number, especially if you're making a ordering cake where there's a formula where you're going to actually charge for the cake. So depending on the servings is the amount that you're going to charge. And you can do multiply and do some conditional logic with that, all right? Then we're going to use, for example, calculated field. So in this case, we have an option to do a calculated, and you can do really advanced calculations with this conditional logic. So in this case, remember, there's a value 10 for the number of servings. And for that number, I'm going to grab it with the field. So I'm going to select field, and I'm going to use number of servings. So whatever number is typed in there greater than 10, it's going to trigger this, and it's going to make a calculation, right? So for example, in this, I'm going to multiply it by 2, right? And then where is the summary going to be triggered at? I'm going to send it to, for example, I'll just send it here to special requests, okay? And we'll save it there, right? Just for testing purposes, let's go ahead and preview this form. And again, you can create a specific text field where you can add the multiplication, the formula that we just created, or you can create a specific field where you add the multiplication that we just did with the formula. Remember, number of servings. If I select 7, nothing is going to happen. Why? Because we said greater than 10. So any number greater than 10 is going to trigger the formula. In this case, for example, I'll do 15, and it multiplies it by 2, and it adds it in this section. So this is just a quick use case, but it could be, for example, you can add this number in the field where you're going to charge an X amount of money. And you have this option to do it based on the amount of servings. So if I select another serving, 30, it's going to be 60 because that's the formula that I've just created. That's a really great use case, again, depending on how you want to use it. Okay, let's get rid of this use case right now. Let's jump into the next conditional logic, enable required or marked field. Okay, let's go ahead and select it. And again, the if and do. So if something happens, it's going to do something. And the options that we're going to have is enable or make required or mark a field. So let's go ahead and choose something here. For example, if I select a shape, for example, and the state is equal to or not equal to, depending what I want to use, or it's empty or filled. In this case, I'll use if it's equal to, and I'll just say square, right? So if the shape of the cake in this case is squared, well, something is going to happen. It's going to make something required, not required, require multiple of these fields, And I'll use that one, require multiple fields. To show you this one, I'll show you the next ones in a bit, all right? And which ones are going to be required? Well, I'm going to tell it to make required the photo or sketch. I'm also going to make required special request and maybe a date required, okay? Hypothetically, we're going to say that this particular cake, that square, is more complex, and for that certain reason, we're going to make required that they have to add a photo or a sketch. They got to add the special request details and add the date required, okay? So let's go ahead and save this. Let's go test this form and let's go ahead and test it out. So remember, if this shape of the cake is squared, going to select it, you can see now a little star popped up here. It's now required. I cannot skip this form without filling these details right there. Let me go ahead and turn this off, and I'm going to select the other options, okay? See this? We don't have that little red star anymore because it's not required anymore. Again, just giving you a quick use case of how you can use this. Let me go ahead and edit this. Let's go ahead and change this. And if you make this required, you can only make required one section. In this case, we use the require multiple. You can make don't require multiple. So that means that if you have already previously enabled the required on the form, you can disable that by, if this happens, then do that, all right? We can also make disabled, enabled, and set a mask, depending on the if situation here, all right? Let's go back. Let's go ahead and get rid of this one. All right, let's add another condition. And now we're gonna skip to hide a page. So first off, let me create some pages where we can skip and jump to a certain section depending on what is selected, all right? So let's go into build, all right? And we're gonna create a page here. We're gonna add a new page here. Let's add an element in this page just for testing purposes. And in this one, we're gonna add a short text. Here we go. And I'll say page 2 question. And this is just so we can locate it to give you an idea how it works. Let's add another page here. And again, I'll add another short text. And I'll say page 3 question. All right, there we go. Let's go back into our settings. Let's go in conditions, skip to hide a page. And again, if do, all right? So if something happens, it's gonna skip to a certain part of this page. In this case, we're gonna skip the second page to jump to the third page where it's the end. But if you have multiple pages, you jump into a certain area, okay? So what is going to happen in order for this to happen? Okay, so this case, we're gonna select, for example, if allergies is selected, and in this case, we are going to use if it's filled, all right? So if something is typed in there, it's gonna trigger this. Again, you can have your own use case of how you can use this and jump certain areas of a page or hide a page, okay? So in this case, we are going to skip to a page or hide. Imagine if you have, in this case, we only have 3 pages. So the beginning of the form, the second one that we created, and the third one. I can skip to the third page, which would be the same thing as hiding the page because there's only 3 pages. So if I hide the middle page, it's gonna jump to a third one. But imagine having 5 or 6 pages of the step form. Well, we can hide just certain areas of that form. So I can hide, for example, the 3rd page and the 4th page, and we'll still have the 3rd one and the 5th one. So in this case, I'll use skip to page, and it's going to skip to the last page, which is the 3rd page. Let's go ahead and save this, and let's go ahead and test it out. Okay. So in this case, let's just go ahead and fill this out really quickly. I am not going to type anything here to give you an idea of how it works. Okay. So let's go next, and it takes us to the page 2. Okay. Let's go back. So again, now we do type something here in the allergy section. So I'll just say test for testing purposes. So something is filled now. So it's going to trigger the conditional logic. So let's go next. And it takes us to the 3rd page and the question number 3. And I can go ahead and submit it. Why? Because that's how I set up this conditional logic. So if something is filled in this particular element, it's going to jump to page 3. So again, you decide how you want to use this. And don't forget, you also have the option to hide pages. So again, there's only 3 pages here, so I can only hide page 2. But if there's several pages here, I can decide which one I want to hide. It doesn't have to be the next one or a specific one. I can select which one. All right, let's go to the next one. Go discard here. Let's go ahead and remove this. Delete it. Let's add a new condition. And let me show you now the change the thank you page. So this is a fantastic idea, especially for different use cases where you have a dedicated thank you page depending on something that happens in the form. So in this case, if something happens, I'm going to change the thank you page. So in this case, for example, I'll use the do you have any allergies field, and I can use one of these conditional logics, but I'll use this field. And what do I want to do? I want to make a special thank you page saying that I did got your message. I know that there's an allergy situation and it's displayed on the thank you page. Okay. So I want to show a custom thank you message. All right. And we can edit every single aspect of this message right here, but I'm just going to add something really quickly here. Here we go. I just wrote this little message here that says we received your note about the allergies and have taken care of it. So we can go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. So let's make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And now we have a dedicated special message if someone writes something in the allergy section. So let me show you. Let's go into preview form. Right. And I can select anything here. There we go. I'll keep that empty to give you the first situation. Let me go ahead and go next, and submit. And there we go. It just says thank you and your submission has been received. So nothing fancy. Again, let's go ahead and test it. Let me go and select a few things here and I'll type something here. I'll just say test and let's go ahead and submit it. All right, here we go. And now we got the special message that says that they know about the allergies and they're going to take care of it. So again, just giving you a really basic use case, but you can decide how you create your thank you pages. Now, again, you can take a lot of advantage of creating multiple fields here where it's going to trigger this section for the thank you page. Now, it doesn't stop there. We can also add another thank you page. So for example, let's go ahead and keep this, save it. I can add a second thank you page and change it depending, just like I showed you right now. We can change it to a different thank you page based on what they select. So it's going to display a different thank you page depending on what you select. Now, the other use case is that we can change that field to take them somewhere else. So for example, let's go ahead and edit this one. And instead of a custom message, I'll do a redirect URL. So this is a really use case where if you finish filling out the form, it'll take you to a certain page of your WordPress site. For example, the contact page, or maybe a page where you have some deals, some sales, maybe a page where it has a coupon code where you could take them there by adding the URL here. So I'll just say test and save it. So now if they fill out something in the allergy section, in this case, it's going to trigger that. But I could do something else. For example, if they select the terms and conditions, I can take them to the terms and condition page by adding that link right there. So it's just use cases of how you can use this. The next one I want to show you is change email recipient. Now, this is a really great use case depending on how you want to use it. Now, the first thing I do recommend is that you create the notifications here on the emails section. So let me create one really quickly to show you a use case, and I'll select notification email, and you can edit every single aspect of this, the subject, the email content for this. But in this case, I'm just going to change the recipient, but you can change everything here. Okay. So in this hypothetical use case, it's going to be, for example, boss@cakes.com. All right. Here we go. Let's go ahead and save this. We got the notification there, and let's go back into conditional logic. Let's go ahead and change email recipient. So here's a use case. If, for example, number of servings, and I'll say in this case, greater than 50, well, I want to notify someone else. Why? Because if someone is ordering a cake that needs more than 50 servings, that means it's a wedding cake, a party cake, that's a super big deal. So you want to make sure that the boss knows about this. So in this case, we're going to send it to notification 2. And yes, you can change the name of notification so you can locate it later on. So in this case, now it's going to email this person if it equals greater than 50. So that's a quick use case. Now, another use case that I really like to use this in is, for example, if they want to contact a certain area in your form. Let me give you a use case really quickly. Let's go ahead and discard that. If I bring in here, for example, a drop-down section here, and let's just say for the areas, I'll just say contact area. Then I'll have the options, for example, accounting, sales, warehouse, etc. And they select the area. So depending on the area that they select, we can trigger the conditional logic to notify the specific person. So for example, the contact area, if it equals 2, and I'll just say accounting, then we're going to notify, let's just think that notification 2 is accounting area. So that way it notifies that person specifically, knowing that they selected that they want to contact the accounting area. So it's a really good use case if you want to use it that way, all right? So now let me go ahead and enable some of these so we can create our WordPress form with conditional logic. And give me a few seconds. All right, I am now done. I've added 2 conditional logics in this case. So if they choose a flavor that's equal to vanilla, I'm going to make required several fields. And if it equals to, for example, other, I'm going to hide some fields, all right? So now let's go into publish, platforms, and I'm going to choose WordPress, and I'm going to grab this code. So let me go ahead and copy this code, and I'm going to go to my WordPress site. So in this case, I'm going to go to pages, and I'm going to create a brand new page just for testing purposes. And I'll just say form for the title. And in blocks, I can beautify my page, I can add images, etc. But in this case, I want to add the form. So I'm going to add blocks, and I'm going to choose custom HTML. In this case, I'm going to add my code. I am going to publish this, go to publish, and I'm going to go ahead and view this page. And here we go. We now have our cake form on our WordPress site. Remember, now let me go ahead and show you really quickly the conditional logic that I set up for testing purposes. For example, if I select vanilla, it's going to make required these 3 fields, all right? And if I choose other in shape, it's going to hide fields. So just like that, I have my conditional form on WordPress. And that's how you're going to create your conditional form on WordPress. It's super easy, and you can start doing it right now on Jotform and adding it to your WordPress site anywhere you like, on your posts, on your pages, or any other sections that are needed to be added, these conditional forms on WordPress. Well, I hope you liked this video. Please let us know here in the comments what you think about the conditional logic options and what you would like to see in the future. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell notification to get notified when new videos come out. And that's a wrap.